All right, looks like it's about time to get started, y'all. Thanks for joining us in this session. Um, be sure to utilize the chat function if you guys have any questions. I'm Tim Butler. I'm the Chief Impact Officer with the East Texas Food Bank. For those of you that don't know me, I oversee kind of all the food distribution programs, agency services, nutrition education, so kind of all over the place. But today I'm going to be humble facilitator for all of our great pantry leaders that are here to join us. So this particular session, we're going to be talking about successful board practices. And who's better to help share with that than your peers on the ground helping serve folks all across East Texas. So we have 5 different representatives that we've identified and we know from the past as having super successful boards. They do a really good job with recruiting, they're hands-on, and wanted them to share some of their best practices and kind of secrets behind an impactful board. It really can be your greatest asset as a nonprofit, having a board that can help support you, not necessarily only financially, but in other ways as well. It could be wisdom, it could be ties in the community, it could be a lot of different things. So they've accomplished some really fantastic stuff through their boards. Really excited that they're having the opportunity to share that with you. So I want to introduce them all right now, but then we'll kick it off one at a time. And we'd like to save questions for about maybe the last 20 minutes or so. For each of the presenters, we're looking at about 7 minutes for each of y'all. I'll keep an eye on it. I'm not going to play you off or anything like that, Grace. I'm not going to play some music. So do your thing. We'll just keep an eye on it. So we have Ed Portier with Tyler Family Assistance Center here in Tyler. We have Ellen Dahlby with St. Vincent de Paul, Tyler. We have Grace Nakamura with Faith in Action in Malakoff, Henderson County. We have Jennifer Randall with Mission Carthage in Panola County. And we have Rob Holiday with Titus County Cares in Titus County. So Ed, I believe we're going to start with you. If you want to just give us a little bit of insight into your board and why you think it's successful. It looks like you're still muted, Ed.
Assistance Center. We are a mission under First Baptist Church in Tyler. Our mission is the mission of Tyler Family Assistance Center is to honor God by providing assistance to people in our community who have spiritual, emotional, or physical needs. Do I need to tell you to go to the next slide? Okay, let's go to the next one. Thank you very much. All right. The how, as I said, we're community service ministry, First Baptist Church. We operate as a board per the East Texas Food Bank guidelines. We operate under and report to the First Baptist Church Missions Committee. Let's skip the next line. Members of TFAC are nominated and elected by TFAC board members. We have 6 members on the board. Their term is for 3 years, with 2 dropping off each year and 2 coming on. So we always have 2 newbies and 2 veterans. And all volunteers are subject to background checks. Let's go to the next slide. We meet once a month. Our minutes are taken by someone who volunteers. And I have to say that our board always winds up with someone who takes copious detail minutes. And that's really part of the key to a successful board. We do no fundraising. We are supported by contributions and donations. First Baptist Church contributes a set amount each month. And then we're fortunate enough to have an endowment that has been, it's been set up in the past, I don't know how long ago, and the interest off that endowment is available when and if needed. Now, our board has to request that and has to justify an expenditure out of that endowment. Next item. We have been fortunate, our main operations are food and clothing. But in addition to that, we provide the following. We're fortunate enough, especially after COVID, to have some extra budget money. We do water bill assistance, prescription purchase assistance, Tyler Metro bus passes, personal items. We purchased fans this summer, jeans. We have purchased gas cards, but we are not handing those out at the current time. Specifically, they're by request only. And then beginning October, we'll be opening one Saturday a month. Next slide, please. You know, we are fortunate enough, and this is something I think all pantries that have boards need to understand. You really need strong leadership on a board, but you don't need that doesn't mean hard-headedness or agenda-driven. The board needs to have a willingness to collaborate with other board members, have open discussions, but focus on whatever your mission is and the facts. Ask yourself, why are we here? And are our decisions in line with our mission? Let that be your guiding factor. And ask yourself, you know, how can we meet additional needs other than food and clothing, budget allowing? Next slide, please. Well, that's the last one, volunteers. I'm sure, you know, all of us struggle with finding good volunteers or finding volunteers at all sometimes. But I've got to say that we are, fortunately, we are supported very, very well by First Baptist Church and the entire congregation. And if we put out a call that we need something, we better get ready. And so we are fortunate in that respect. Some of our volunteers actually are some of our neighbors that we serve. They have turned out to be regular and loyal and most helpful. So, any questions, or do you want those questions to wait till the end, Tim?
I think we could wait for general questions, but I actually had a really important follow-up, if you don't mind addressing. So a lot of our partners are faith-based operations that fall under a church umbrella, just like you guys.
Right.
So how does your board interact with the church's leadership? And can you kind of explain that dynamic a little bit?
Sure. Well, as I said earlier, we're truly governed by what is called a standing committee of the church. The missions committee governs us, and we interact with that missions committee. For instance, they're meeting Sunday after church, and I'll be there to present a budget. I'll be asking for more money since food costs have gone up, and that sort of thing. So that's how we interact. Now, we also have an assistant pastor who we kind of semi report to. It's a good interaction that, you know, if we have a question, his name's Scott Richardson. We go to Scott, we talk to Scott about it. But many times Scott will say, well, you need to run that by the missions committee. So that's how we interact with the church directly.
Okay. Yeah, we have a lot of partners that are directed to their pastor and maybe don't have a board in between. It sounds like that's a really good relationship and a good idea to kind of have that representative in there.
I think it is, and it works out well. We're not trying to go around the board when we go to Scott, but Scott's been there so long, he has a wealth of knowledge, and he is not he's not egotistical enough to try to drive the bus all the time.
That's a good quality. All right. Anybody have any just burning questions for Ed before we go to Ellen? Anyway, again, we'll open it up time at the end of the session. Cool. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next presenter is Ellen Dahlby. So she actually transitioned from a board member to executive director. Is that right? Or vice versa?
It's a little bit close to that. I was going to be a board member, and then instead they switched me over to executive director. I used to work for a consulting firm that was all nonprofit fundraising. And so a lot of what we did at that firm was working with boards on their best practices in interim management. And so some of what I'm going to talk about comes from that experience, and then some comes about the differences we see at St. Vincent de Paul. So I'm going to share my screen if I can, and I should be able to see. Can everyone see my board best practices screen? Awesome. Okay, so I'm with St. Vincent de Paul in Tyler, Texas. We're pretty close to Tyler Family Assistance geographically, and very similarly, we are a religiously affiliated organization in a different way. So we are affiliated with the Catholic Church. However, we do not report to the Catholic Church as a direct report. St. Vincent de Paul is actually a larger international organization that is broken into conferences and chapters and councils. So our board ends up directing all of our communication upline to an East Texas area, St. Vincent de Paul, who then directs theirs to Texas, who then directs theirs to a national level and then an international level. So some of our board practices come from that level of kind of rules and regulations that we follow there, such as our presidents change every 3 years, and our presidents have the ability to appoint all of our board members. So something that I want to go through first is some of our board basics. So our guiding principles in growing or changing our board generally come from these 3 things. The first is investment. So is someone on our board going to invest time, money, or talent? It doesn't have to be all 3. It doesn't have to be money. We want to know that their personal investment is going to be at a level that inspires other people to invest in our organization as well. The second is knowledge. Where do they shine? Is that a hole that we have? Is that a need that we need to fill right now? Or if it's not a need that we should be filling right now, does it make more sense to keep them on as a strong volunteer and cultivate them until we need to fill a new position on the board? The third is their passion or their ability to share stories and impact. So what we've seen a lot, especially in trying to grow with our volunteers, is we need to have board members and leadership who are willing to make personal asks of their friends, their family, and other people in our community. And the easiest way to make a personal ask to someone is truly believing in the impact and having stories ready to share and being willing to bring up their work and their involvement in any social situation. So I always have seen boards as a twofold opportunity for an organization. One is your board as fundraisers. And this isn't just grant writing. This isn't just having like a big event. The idea of a board being a fundraising arm of your organization is, are they willing to be the first people who are going to give to the organization? Do they truly believe in your mission and they know your impact and they know your financial stability well enough that they will put the first dollars down on a new idea or an impact-driven need? Are they willing to channel other people? Are they willing to ask? Are they comfortable asking someone else to think about joining a fundraiser or to become monthly donors or anything of that nature? And are they also willing to be a volunteer or a speaker at any events you might have? So we have our annual fundraiser, the Walk for the Poor, coming up, and we have a baseline expectation that our board members, as long as they're in town, are going to be there. And they know that from the beginning. They know that before they are ever on the board. The other for us is board as our guiding arm of the organization. We're mostly volunteers as well. And so our board is made up of a president, a vice president, a treasurer, a store liaison, because we have a thrift store, a secretary, and an operations manager. We have 5 part-time hourly employees, and they're managed by our operations manager and our president, who are volunteers. And so our organization of, or our structure of St. Vincent de Paul really relies on our board being able to guide our employees as well. So the board votes on any policy changes. We do staff management. We try to incubate new ideas here. And this is also an area that the diversity of our board is really important. Does our board have members that look like our clients? And that can be in a variety of ways, either socioeconomic, it could be race. For us, a big one is making sure we have someone who speaks Spanish on our board at all times, because a lot of our clients speak Spanish. And we want to be able to make sure that there's not a huge disconnect in the culture we have as an organization with the culture that we serve. Our requirements for our board are volunteering day to day. So we're open every Tuesday and Thursday morning. Most of our board members volunteer at that time, or they come in on their own hours. We even have a board member who comes in from 6 to 7 to sort produce. But we want to make sure our volunteers and our board interact, as well as our board interacts with our clients and understands what's actually going on. We have quarterly board meetings, but interspersed in our meetings, we do a lot of email communication. During all of our meetings, we have a hard time limit of 1 hour. It makes us stay on task, and it makes us be more efficient. We also have agenda that goes out the month before the meeting and is tweaked, and anyone can add and detract from it until the meeting starts. And then after our board meeting, everyone gets emailed with the minutes of the meeting, but more importantly, they're assigned action items that were discussed throughout the meeting so that we know what needs to be accomplished before our next meeting. And our last one is to just be in touch with our clients, so our faith and our mission. We do have a spiritual chair on our board. Being Catholic, it's really important for us to bring in our faith. And so all of our board members, by the governing laws of St. Vincent de Paul, are members of the Catholic Church and are active in faith life. And we always try to bring like prayer and commitment to our faith into those meetings so that we can stay grounded in the mission of serving the poor. And so I think I'm right at my time limit, and that was everything that I had.
That was a wonderful presentation, Ellen. Thanks for taking the time. I'm keeping lists of questions that I have as well, so I have one for you. All right. Next is going to be Grace Nakamura with Faith in Action. They're over in Malakoff in Henderson County, which is the western part of our service area here in East Texas. Hi, Grace. Good to see you.
Okay, trying to unmute. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. As Tim said, I'm Grace. I'm with Faith in Action in Henderson County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Our organization started in 2004 as the Malakoff Food Pantry and became Faith in Action in 2011. Altogether, we've been helping Henderson County for 18 years now. We currently have 7 board members, of which 3 have served for over 10 years. The longest serving member is our secretary, who has done it for 12 years, and our chairman, who has done it for 11. I've been honored to be a part of the board now for 8 years and the executive director for 5. We meet on a monthly basis. This helps to keep everyone informed on what is going on at Faith in Action and in the community. We are, like several people, a faith-based organization and have drawn upon local churches as well as the community and businesses for our board members and volunteers. Currently, we are represented by 4 different churches. The main requirement of being on our board is the love of the Lord and people. Our motto is serving Jesus by serving people. You also have to have a willingness to serve and help the community and have lots of patience. I feel our board works well together due to these requirements, and as well as that every board member is also a volunteer. This is not a requirement, but we have been blessed with a great group who like to give. Being a volunteer helps keep everyone aware of what it takes to operate on a day-to-day basis, as well as keeps us in contact with our many varied clients, as well as their needs. This practice helps so much when it comes to making decisions as a board, to help meet the needs of our community. As a director, I do not vote unless it is to be a tiebreaker, and I have not gotten to vote in over 5 years. Even when we made the decision to build a new facility and everything that it has entailed, there's not been a huge disagreement on how to proceed or what we want to accomplish. We may not always totally agree, but we have learned to put the needs of Faith in Action and its clients above our own desires. We are doing this by providing many varied programs and opportunity to our neighbors in need. We are really blessed to have a group that works so well together, because not only do our board members support us mentally, physically, but many also give financially. We are not only associates of Faith in Action, but we are also friends and comrades in the fight against hunger in our community. And that's about all I really have to say about our board. Thank you for listening to me talk. Is anybody?
Yeah, I'm back, Grace. I'm sorry. IT emergency,
Okay.
actually. So I actually have a follow-up question for you. If you have a second, we'll save it till the end just to see if anybody else has that same question. Thank you so much, Grace. Next, we're going to kick it off to Jennifer Randall with Mission Carthage. Hey, Jennifer, you have a beautiful office compared to mine. Mine is just dead space, no natural light. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Can you hear me? Okay.
You're good.
Well, thank you for inviting me to share about our board, and I'll get started. Mission Carthage next month will celebrate 19 years in our existence, and one of our board members, our secretary, has been the board secretary for almost 19 years. She has a real heart for what she does and how she serves people. And I know in some of the classes and things that taken before, they talked about the rotating people off, and I think sometimes that probably does need to happen. But if your board members are still loving people and still doing what they feel like they're called to do and progressing, I think it's important to see that as a good thing. And we do have some newer, and we actually have a young president now. He's like 31, 32. So it's nice to, he leads our produce drops that we do. All of our board has different hands. They all have different gifts and different things they bring to the table. And it's important to know that they are volunteers and they're spending their time to do things. And so as executive director, it's my job to make sure that I'm vulnerable enough to have a good relationship with the board. So communication is so important. You never want them to hear about something major from someone in the community because you didn't tell them. That's just not good practice. So that's one of the things that I have enjoyed being executive director for 4.5 years now. I've been here 14.5 years. And one of the things I noticed is the more we talk, the more we share, the more I tell them, the better the relationship, the stronger the teamwork that goes into it. So a little bit about how we operate. We have 8 board members right now. We've never had more than 9. We've been kind of between 7 and 9 most of the time through our existence. So we need to make sure, of course, that we have a quorum. And so if we have 8, we have to have at least 5 people that are attending. And only during the summer do we ever seem to have problems having a quorum because of things that go on during the summer. So we meet 11 months out of the year. December, we just have a Christmas party. So we vote for the budget and all that in November, or they do in November, and that will start in January. So they just kind of get a month off in December. When addressing the board, I have a file that says board members, and if one board member sees something, all of them see something. So if I send an email, they all get it. That's important to stay legal, so that you're not discussing things and trying to railroad somebody, to be accused of railroading somebody, even if that's not your intention. So when I do my text, it goes to all the board members, because some of them text and some of them like email. And again, that's all about communication. And that's something that, some people are really good at, and something some people have to work really hard at. So, but I have seen that it makes all the difference in what we do. So they also do fundraising, and they all help, and they all work, or they donate, or they give to it in all different ways, because it's like a church body, as far as everybody having their own strengths and weaknesses. And so they also have they host a volunteer appreciation fish fry every year, and we'll do it in October. And that's for, they get to see all the volunteers that they don't normally get to see, because they're just around a board table, and sometimes they have jobs, and they can't be at the events or whatever. And so there's that they're not at everything, because we have a board. The treasurer is the bank president, and he's busy. We have a funeral home owner, a retired school principal. We have a couple of pastors, just a youth pastor, an insurance agent, just a little bit of everything. And it's just important to just broaden that. And they vote on who they get to come to be a new board member. I could make a recommendation, but it's pretty much just something that they do. They just kind of keep that going and keep someone on there. And so we are not affiliated with a church. We're a freestanding 501c3. And so we might be a little bit different from some that have like a church thing that they have to go to. But that's just about all the stuff I can think of right offhand.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. And we're going to move on to our last presenter. It's Rob Holliday with Titus County Cares. Hey, Rob, long time no see. See you over there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Looks like you might have frozen.
Okay, my screen's frozen up, so I don't have any slides. I just want to talk.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Now can you hear me? Okay. So all of the things that have been said so far are very similar to ours. We're a Christ-based, Christ-centered county. Titus County Cares is the name of our food pantry. And we have a board of directors that is appointed. We have 14 board members that are appointed. We are as well diverse in age, in culture, and of course in abilities. And one of the most important things about our board, I would say, is that we're community connected, because we depend on, of course, our board and community organizations, churches, civic groups, things like that for our financial support. One of the things I haven't heard said, but I think is very important, we may keep our board meetings formal rather than casual, is important for us. I mean, they are casual, but formality is important to me as a board president, because what we do affects people long term, and we want it to be impactful. So we do try to keep formality in our board meetings. That's not to say we're trying to be stodgy. We're just, it's important because what we do matters, and what we do has a financial impact on our clients and on our community. Our board's made up of, like I said, a diverse group of people: bankers, doctors, transportation workers, stay-at-home moms, marketing folks, accounting folks. Our secretary of our board is the one that takes the minutes, and she, the current secretary, redistributes those monthly prior to the next meeting, so that we can, if we've taken action and we need to take further action, we can revisit those meetings, those minutes. We do require a quorum, as well as, like Jennifer said. We did have to establish a policy during the pandemic of doing meetings like we're doing now, and being able to vote on impactful, important decisions via text or via the Zoom meetings. So that
Rob,
was
looks like we're having a little trouble
that was
hearing
a
you.
little deal we
I'm
had
going
to
to
go
go
through
ahead
during
and
that
stop
time.
your video.
Our qualifications for board members are, of course, desire. Okay.
You're good, Rob. You can keep talking. She just shut your
You
video
hear me
down.
now?
Having some internet
Okay.
issues.
Okay, good. Okay. What I was saying, our qualifications for our board members, of course, desire, having the time to do it, a passion, a trust of others. I think it's very important for board members that we trust each other, that we have compassion for what we're doing, and of course, faith, since we are faith-based organizations. Our expectations are, like some of you said, be available. We meet monthly, and of course, there's times when people can't be there. To be an advocate for Titus County Cares in our communities, in our community, in our churches, and in your circle of influence. That has a lot to do with who gets appointed to the board. Have to be a good problem solver. Someone said, we don't always agree, but we want to be agreeable. Any decision that we make, we need to come out of that board meeting in harmony, because those decisions are going to impact our community, and they're going to impact our clients for sure. Trying to go through. Our tenure is not limited. Our chairperson is limited to a 2-year tenure, and the board tenure is as long as you're willing to serve, or until you have to remove yourself because of outside interest or something like that. We meet the third Tuesday of every month, and we meet at noon with no meal. It's just a better time for everybody to be able to come. Our vice chair rotates in as the chairman after 2 years, and our secretary is the minute taker, who is also our accounting person. We have 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee, and they sit in on the board meetings, but they're not voting members of the board. Our agenda is that we establish a quorum, like you all said. We have prayer, of course, and review action items, review the financials, and take reports from the directors. That's about all I've got. Everybody else kind of already said everything.
Okay. Yeah. Benefits of going last. Save some time.
Yeah, exactly.
So did anybody, before I have a list of questions I wanted to ask you guys, but before I get started, I want to make sure the audience gets to ask what they would like. Is there anything you guys have?
What do y'all provide? Is it just primarily food, or do you provide any other services? That's for Ellen.
I was Okay, great. So we do food on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. We also have household items outside. We do mostly a drive-through pantry now where our clients fill out an order form, so they still have food choice. But it has let us grow from like 40 families a session to like 85. And so while they're waiting for their food order to be filled, they go through clothing and household items. We have a pharmacy program that's a mail order pharmacy that is, and I can send this to other people if you guys want it. If you live in Texas and you do not have health insurance, if you qualify for assistance from the food bank, you qualify for free prescriptions being filled via mail through our Dallas-based pharmacy. And so we have that. We do utility assistance by appointment. We do some additional special requests by appointment as well. We have a nurse do blood pressure checks during all of our sessions. We have a thrift store. We have vouchers for our thrift store. And I'm sure that I'm forgetting something. But usually when things come up, the main thing we do not do is provide gas. I'd say that's the biggest one we get asked about that we don't do. We do emergency shelter for inclement weather as well at motels. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions from the audience? All right, I wanted to ask all 5 of you, do any of y'all have a client or a past client of a food pantry on your board? And if so, were you intentional about recruiting them? What value do they bring?
I can go first. So at this very moment, we don't. We have a board meeting on Monday, and we're about to be switching into a new president who has the ability to appoint. We do have one client who I'm trying to get on the board right now. And she's just praying about it. So hopefully she'll say yes. She's a member of our parish, and I think would provide a lot of really good insight for us. And so we usually would get a client on our board just through a personal ask and kind of that cultivation of a relationship with them.
Okay. Grace, you're about to say something. Aletha, I see you in the chat. We'll address that in just 1 second. But go ahead, Grace.
I started as a client 10 years ago. I was a client of Faith in Action. I was in an automobile accident and had to support my family and turned to food banks to help with that and just kind of stayed.
Yeah, so for y'all that don't know, Grace is a shining beacon of success in Malakoff. I mean, how many people live in Malakoff? Is it 2,000 people?
I think it's 2,400.
Little town, and they just got enough funding to build just a gigantic new building. They have a clothes closet. They're busy all the time. So she's been a fantastic job and started out as a client. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a blessing.
Great. Ellen, I see you put that link into the chat for Aletha. Everyone, Aletha wanted to know a little bit more about the prescription program. Was there anything else you want to say about it, or will that cover it?
That link is for our website. It will have an English flyer, Spanish flyer, and their generic information flyer on there. So you can download any of those and print them out and give them out as necessary.
Okay. Jennifer,
Thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jennifer.
We do not have a client on our board. We've never had a client on our board. So they've talked about it, but it has not been something that has been done. So I myself have been in a situation where my husband became disabled and we had to get help. And so I'm kind of like Grace in that coming from someone who needs help into helping people. So that was 14 and a half years ago. And so it's, I'm there to represent the people. And so they haven't really seen the need, even though we've discussed it. But I think in the future, it might be something that we'll do.
Yeah, I really think just that shared experience and the empathy for the situation can only help, especially for a board that it sounds like you guys will have very active working boards, but if you happen to have a board that may be a little bit removed from the mission, having that perspective to help chime in and connect them to the mission on a monthly basis is important.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I actually had a follow-up question for you, so you
Okay.
can sit back on. So you mentioned that you don't actively recruit board members, but your board kind of does. Who's responsible for that, and how do they identify them in the community?
So since I've been on and going to board meetings in 4.5 years, if someone in the community, a pastor or someone would like a representative to be on the board, they may write a letter of recommendation to the board. And the board will read it. Usually it comes to the office and then I'll take it to them and then they'll read it. And they'll decide if they feel like they need an extra person, or if they need that person, or if that's not a good fit. And they'll either they'll usually table it and pray about it. And then if they decide that they do want that person, then the board president will call and ask them if they would consider being on the board, and tell them a little bit about what it involves. And then that person will say yes or no. So that's kind of how it's been for the past 4.5 years. It's usually someone that's nominated. They haven't been in an actively seeking, needing to fill seats like desperately. So it's just kind of been like, we could do one more, and we need somebody from that specialty, or that has that background or whatever. So yeah, but it's important, as we learned it through Bridges Out of Poverty, it's important to be able to understand where the clients are coming from. But as executive director and board, you also have to be able to mingle with those that have money, that can donate. And so it is a challenge sometimes to go in one day from that to the other, so it's just something that you have to remember. You want to be honest and you want it to be upfront, but the general public with money, they don't really understand poverty. They want to give, they want to help, they just don't understand why. And so if we find somebody that is wanting to come on that has maybe a little bit of knowledge in that area, like our retired principal who deals with children who come from poverty and children who come from wealth, just that kind of thing, something that is considered.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen, I had a question for you. In one of your slides, you mentioned just ensuring that you had a good mix, or a diverse mix of knowledge and skills for your board members. How do you obtain that information, see what skills you actually have available and what you need to target?
Yeah, so a lot of our board members, I think those skills come from their previous employment. So we have a few, like our operations manager, he worked in manufacturing and was a management on a manufacturing floor. And so some of it is lining up what would be on a resume, kind of what matches our position descriptions. We do have an outline of positions and their requirements and their expectations for each board position. The other thing that I think is really helpful that I like to use a lot is it's a model called the Working Genius. And it is this learning and working model that everyone has 2 areas of work that they love and they excel in, 2 areas that they're proficient in and they like, but if they did it every day, it would be a little taxing. And then 2 areas that they are not into at all. And so they are the areas that build out the way that an idea goes into fruition. So you have wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. And so as we go through, there are quizzes you can take. Most people have an idea of kind of like what they are, but I know that I am not a tenacity driven person. I'm more on the early side of ideation. And so I need to make sure that when I have an idea, there's someone with me who is willing to say, like, is this realistic? And then there's someone else who's willing to say, this is how we get other people behind it. Someone who's willing to say, I'll help with whatever you want. And someone who's going to make sure that that idea goes into fruition. We see it to the end. And so I think having a balance of those in personalities, we see a lot of that in our volunteers who then we ask to become board members later. And so I like tools like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super helpful. If you have a board that's all worker bees and maybe not a high level thinker, that's not particularly helpful, although you need both. That's great, Ellen. Thank you. Grace, I had a follow-up question for you. Since I think Malakoff is smaller than Carthage, although I think you guys are both kind of on the same level. Actually, yeah, Malakoff's smaller. So I gathered from your presentation that you guys don't have term limits for your board, which is fine and your choice. How do you make sure that you bring on a new thought process and diverse perspectives instead of just kind of having the same thing year after year?
When we always try to keep our board small so there isn't a lot of dissension. When somebody leaves, we as a board will present members that we would all like to see on there, and then we'll make a decision. We'll invite them to come to a board meeting, see how they fit in, and then we will make a vote as a board who we want to have. And we'll check with like different people from the community, other church members, volunteer organizations.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are pretty good at self-governing and making sure you're staying ahead, just because I've personally seen you grow so much in the past 10 years that you're motivated. I think what you guys have as a board with a less motivated group could be a recipe for just being stale, having the same 3 or 4 people that are making decisions all the time. And it's fantastic that it's worked out for you guys.
We are really blessed. I mean, we all get along, and we just, like I said, we put faith in action first and our desires second. So It's more, what can we do for the community? What can we do to help?
Yep. And do you ever involve like an adjunct or an ad hoc board member, like you bring in a superintendent to advise or something like that? Not really. Alrighty, and I did have just a general question for all 5 of you guys. Have any of y'all, I know you all have different services that you offer aside from food. Like I said, Grace does the clothes closet. Jennifer, you do a ton of stuff. Same with Ellen. Ed, you have the clothes closet as well. Rob, I know you have the biggest child hunger program in East Texas. Have you guys started a new program with your board, and walk us through how you'd propose that to them while avoiding mission creep? Like Jennifer, if you wanted to do something brand new, how would you address it with your board? Rob, if you wanted to start a new child hunger program, walk us through that, your kind of logic model.
We were talking about, getting everything over to client choice food pantry, and anything when we first started doing the senior boxes, anything that we want to start doing, if it benefits the people, the board is always, it doesn't even entail a huge presentation or any of they're like, let's do it. Let's do it. So I haven't run into any problems as long as it's benefiting the clients, then they're for it. So it's not been, and again, I believe God works in ways that we can't always just figure out, like, this is how it is, this is how it is. Like Grace has this small board, and I have some with longevity and some newer ones. And it really just depends. If you've got people with a heart for people, it's going to be okay. That's the big thing is to, I think if there's anything, make sure that the people that are coming in have a heart for people, because that's where it all boils down.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other examples of new programs you guys have added with your board, how they responded, or good tactics with that? Rob?
Yep. We do have a large people call it a backpack program. We call it Food for Kids. based in all the area school districts. And we have expanded that program quite a bit. My wife and I are also the director of that program. But the ways that we expand any of those programs is we have those discussions within the board. What are the needs? What are the needs? What do you see the needs as? And that's one of the ways that we did. We expanded not just from elementary school kids, but we are now all the way through high school with our Food for Kids program. These kids the high school kids don't get a backpack. What we did was we talked about it at our board meeting. We discussed it, and we decided that we would work through communities and schools, put up a food closet, for lack of a better term, where those kids have a little more dignity and they can come in, choose what they want to get because they're food insecure kids, and they can put it in their own backpack and they don't have to be carrying around a Food for Kids bag. So that the genesis of that was board meetings talking about what do our kids really need.
Yeah, so basically just putting together a version of a needs assessment, talking to the board about why it's needed. I'm sure you're prepared with how much it's going to cost in the end and what your growth strategy is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all serve a lot of kids through that. I'm always stunned every month when I see your numbers.
It's crazy. It's crazy. You know, last year we started the year with 1,100 kids. We're over 1,450, and we're in the second week of serving our kids this year. So
yeah, every week, right?
God's blessing us. Yeah, we're very blessed.
Well, I think that wraps it up. I do have a couple housekeeping things before y'all leave. Were there any other questions for our panelists? All right. Thank you so much for taking the time, guys. I do want to say a couple different things. And Laura with Tech 12, I'm hoping you can help me here. When we come back at 1 from lunch, we're going to do a grant giveaway. So the way that that's going to work is if you haven't filled out that link to the Google form for the grants, you're not going to be eligible for it. So before y'all leave for lunch, Laura, can you repost that grant link for me in chat? So it's just a short Google form that has your pantry name and your name. And if you click on that and fill it out, every participant can fill it out, and you're going to get called up for a game to win some money for your pantry. So make sure you click on that before y'all go to lunch so you're eligible. We're going to start right back off at 1. The first grant is 1 to 115. Then we have an awesome guest speaker that I know you guys are going to love right after that. And then we're going to do 5 or 6 more grants right at the end of the day. So just make sure you click on that, fill that out to make sure you're eligible, and enjoy lunch. I'll stick around in case you guys just have any questions that don't have to do with the board. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.